Welcome to another episode of Courageous Me. And this week we've got the very courageous Bronwyn Robinson. And I'm super excited because Bronwyn is one of the chefs at my retreat. And we literally only came back from the retreat a couple of days ago. So I've just spent quite a number of days 24/7 with Bron. And oh my God, she's an amazing woman. And I'm super excited to get permission to go deep and ask her questions about courage and who she is. So, Bron, before we get into it and learn a bit more about you, what excites you to have a conversation with me today about courage?
First, hello, Kim. I guess first was being at the retreat and seeing the courage. Well, actually, it was my second retreat, not my first one. And seeing the courage of what the girls came out with. And since the first retreat, I've been listening along to the podcast each week and following along about the girls. And I thought, well, maybe, yes, it's my turn.
Beautiful. Oh, I love that. I love that. Because, of course, you don't have a story, do you?
No, I don't have a story.
I love that. Everyone then listens to previous episodes and they're like, oh, maybe I do. It's like, yeah, you do. So on that note, can you just tell us a little bit about who you are? And then can I get you to reach in and share with all of us, when is a moment where you really had to find some courage in your life? And I don't care whether you go back to when you're a teeny tiny little girl or whether it was more recent, but one of those moments.
I'm a mum of four grown children, soon to be a grandma. I became a pastry chef at the age of 18. So I kind of had a family that moved around. As I was growing up, and we sort of got to, I was 16. Dad said, we're moving again. I said, well, I'm not going to school anymore. So not another school for me. So we moved to South Australia. I worked in Sports Girl in the kitchen. So sort of got an idea of that. Back then, Sports Girl actually had a restaurant, which was ahead of its time. So it's like when you go in the food halls now and it's got that, the healthy one you go to with the sandwiches and the salads. Well, Sports Girl in South Australia actually had one of those.
And this is Sports Girl as in the fashion brand Sports.
Yes. Yeah. Yep.
I know that.
So you'd go up the back of the actual shop, the clothing shop, and there was this trendy restaurant ahead of its time. So I worked there and I worked at David Jones in the food hall. We moved back to Melbourne and I became a pastry chef. So I was a little late back in the time being 18 and a first year apprentice. But before
How old are
that,
they normally?
usually, back in the day, they'd start about 16. They'd leave school, start about 16 an apprentice. But I guess I've even skipped a step because before that, I'd actually been doing flowers alongside mum. So when I was still at school, I had to do work experience. I picked floristry. My mum said, you can't go do work experience without knowing something about what you're going to do. So she didn't get the concept of that's why you do work experience. So we actually went off and did, my sister and I did the full floristry course for 3 terms it was back then. So we're talking 1987. And so we did that. Mum started doing wedding flowers. Our first wedding was in 1988, which was just before we moved to South Australia. So we'd already started doing that. So after work, I'd help mum. When I became an apprentice, I'd come home, I'd work with mum because she still had her job plus doing the bridal flowers. Even my husband, he moved in before we got married, and he would help after work with the flowers. So I've had that all the way since I was 15, and when I was 18, I became a pastry chef, which led me into meeting you along the way.
Absolutely. So let me ask, so you've gone to school. When you finish school, you've gone to become a pastry chef, but in the meantime, behind the scenes, you're doing all this floristry and working with flowers. When
Yes,
you were really little and you were looking at growing up, what did you want to be? Was either of those two on the cards?
cooking. So
Cooking, okay.
I do remember back, mum and dad would sleep in on a Sunday. I would get up, climb in, get the packet mix of cake mix, and I would have only been, so the house I'm picturing it in, I would have been about 10, and I'd get the cake mix and make a cake, and they'd get up. Or I remember being in high school and mum would work late, dad travelled with work, and I didn't know how expensive they were, but get steaks out the freezer, cook up steaks and veggies. Or I used to buy recipe books. So we'd go in the city as girlfriends, and I'd hit bookshops and I'd bring home recipe books. Mostly cake ones. I remember mum had this strange piping bag. It was like a plastic tube, so you actually used to press down on a button to dispense it. And I learnt how to make my eclairs right back then. By
You know you can
recipe
buy
book.
them, right?
Yeah, yes you can. So, and I still love making choux pastry, and you actually have had my profiteroles, which is the same pastry.
Oh.
Um, so I guess cooking was all the way along, until I fell into this. I want to do flowers and attempt to do the work experience, and go from there. So, and again, I've done flowers for you along the way as well in the
You
last,
sure have.
less than 12 months.
That's right, absolutely, and we will get onto that because it's such a beautiful synchronicity around how you and I met and how all of that came. And now I can't imagine you not in my life. So super cool. Plus, I love the fact that you cook and do flowers, two things that I hate and I'm not good at, and I have no desire to be good at. So I know
Yeah,
that language is not very conducive to learning, but I don't want to learn. Not
yeah,
interested.
yep.
Okay, so you've got all this floristry going on. You've got the pastry chefing going on. You also mentioned you've got 4 kids. How did that happen? Or you're nearly a grandparent. Where did all that come into play? Talk to me about what life looked like and where you were spending your time.
So I would have been only just an apprentice at the time because I was 18 when I met my husband. So I went to his graduation actually with my cousin. So once, and I met him there. Sorry, I went to her graduation with her, and that's where I met him because he went to school with her.
Ah,
So Troy was actually 17 at the time, and I was 18. So I was the one that had to drive him around. So, seeing as he was only on his learners. Um, and then, we got engaged, and my dad said we just had to wait till I'd finished my apprenticeship to get married. So basically, I finished my apprenticeship in the June. We got married in the June. Uh, so we got married by 1997. We had our first child, and she was 3 weeks early. So he got her for Father's Day. So
oh.
she was actually a Father's Day baby.
And how old
Um,
were you when you had your first? Just save me doing the maths.
25.
25. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So I was 25 when I had her. So then I had Courtney, then Tyson came along 2.5 years later. Within 2 years, we had Bethany. So by the time Courtney was 5, we had Thomas. So they're very, very close in age.
Yeah.
So,
And were you working while you were doing this, or did you have time out to just focus on the fact that you've got all these children?
well, when I had Courtney, I went back into the bakery. Um, and I did do that until I was pregnant with Tyson. I worked back in the bakery, but all the way along from when I had Courtney to till I took over the business, I still went and worked with mum. So
You're
I
still
was
doing the
still doing the
flowers.
flowers. So
Ah, got it, got it.
so I was still doing the weddings all the way through. So she would come along with us, and because it was with mum at home, I could stop and feed her Like there was kind of no rules. And Mum and I still say that probably comes across in our time. We're not rushed for time. We work from home, so we're not there going, we have to get our wedding work done in an hour. You know, if it's an hour and it takes us 3 hours, it's on us. We kind of don't quote, yes, we quote for our time, but if it takes us longer, it's because, hey, we might chuck some washing on, or we might do dinner, or we stop for lunch, but it's not it. And I think it shows the relax that we have and the conversations like that we have. So when it all started, I used to do all the little fiddly things, and Mum would do the bridal bouquets, and I would wire it, she'd put it together. Then as we went on, and I took over, we swapped. So Mum comes, and Mum's now 80, she's almost 81. So she comes and does all the little fiddly stuff, and I do the bigger stuff because still
Oh,
she
how
comes,
cool.
yeah. So we still sit there and have the conversations, and she more comes on my busier weeks now because she spends a lot of time with Dad. But yeah, no, she still comes and she still works. So in 2011, I took over the business. It was, the kids are at school, the kids are able to, like, they're not so much in the ways. And Dad wanted time for them because he was retired. So I took over the business, which meant then Mum didn't lose the days running around picking flowers up, picking supplies up. And I took over, and I go, and now, so sort of like Wednesday's a day on the road to pick up, Thursday sort of prepping, getting anything done, and then we will, and then Friday, well, it depends on the wedding days, and then Friday would be putting together for the weekend. So, but then,
So can I just ask though, you loved cooking, you grew up loving cooking, you've become a chef, you're working in the cooking space. On the side, your mum's got this interest in flowers, your mum and your sister do the floristry stuff, and you're just helping her on the side. But in 2011, you take over the floristry business.
yes, and
Right.
I sort of have skipped in there along the way. I stopped with Tyson in the physical bakery. I would still do the odd birthday cake, the odd wedding cake. And Mum kind of came to me and said, Bron, I remember the first one. She said, Bron, I've got a couple. They haven't got much money. They only want a small cake. Can you help them? So that was kind of the leading into doing more cakes. So from work, from along the way, I actually would work with Mum and then come home and work on cakes. So it could end up at 2 o'clock morning by the time I'd finish a cake. And I actually registered a room in my house, so it was council registered, so that I could still bake. And every year they come, they check the house, check the room. So I was actually running both at one stage. I was running the wedding cake. So when people would come, they'd order their wedding flowers, a wedding cake, and get everything delivered in one. So
And
it
was
was a combined.
Oh, I love that. And was that under your mum's business brand, or did you have your own business set up at this point?
I originally called it All Cakes by Bron,
Oh,
but
okay. So it was your own business.
it was. And
Yeah.
then when I took over Buds and Roses, it kind of didn't make sense because the emails going out had Bron at Buds and Roses. So I actually changed the cake portion into Cakes by Buds and Roses. So it was a little separate, but it was still brought the two businesses together.
Wow. So and it feels like, and I might be wrong here, but it feels like you'd been an employee as a baker and working for Sports Girl and the David Jones Food Court and that, but you've then naturally migrated into running, effectively, it was a florist business and a cake business, which merged into one. Did at any point you sit back and make that decision that you wanted to be a business owner, or was it very, very a natural process that you went through.
I would say it was a natural progression.
Okay. Yeah.
It it was sort of mum saying, "Oh, one day this will be yours,"
Yes.
but it was more a natural progression of, "Okay, I can do this now."
Yeah. And
So
how did that feel when your mum was saying one day this would be yours? Because I know this happens with a lot of families where, the child might work in the parent's business, but it's not what the child wants.
yeah, yeah.
Was that ever the case, or did you find you loved flowers as well? So hearing your mother say those words for you was like, absolutely, it kind of, that's my path.
I think it was. I think it was just my path. Um, and the cakes were as well. Um, and they just flowed so well together. So,
Yeah.
and it did help me doing what I did, like working with mum, having the 4 kids, and even working for myself. It did help me to work from home, to stop and do football runs. I have 4 football children. So
Of course.
so it was every night of the week was football training. So it wasn't at first, it was just the 2 boys, and then my daughter wanted to play. So my husband started up a team for her. So it was literally packing them to Beaconsfield for every day of the week. Come home, like drop them off, come home, maybe spend an hour of doing whatever I'm doing, or get a cake, because mud cakes can take 4 hours. I time it so that I can go down there, come back, get it out the oven. Um, and then the deliveries and all would be, I'll go to a girl, she'd go, "Oh, I'm picking up at this time," and I'd look at where they're playing. And I go, "Oh, look, would you like me to deliver?" And I make it look like I'm helping them, but they're actually helping me. So it would be, "I can deliver your cake for you," knowing that the football ground's like 2 minutes away from where their house is.
Oh, perfect.
So so it was
Yeah.
a bonus for them, but a bonus for me, because if they're
Yeah.
coming to me and they're running late, it
Yeah.
then runs the children late.
Totally,
So
I love that. And through all of this, Bron, so there's obviously the element of like doing the flowers or baking the cake, right? That's the doing stuff. But you're also running a business. How did you learn those skills? And like, yeah, because they're effectively two different things.
they are, it's not just baking and cooking.
No.
It's nowadays, it's the bookwork. I'm not good at my
Yeah.
bookwork. Um, I do have, my sister was helping with bookwork. She has put me on
Okay.
a fantastic system to put everything in, and the quoting of it. I mean, mum used to hand type all of her quotes and hand type everything. And then when I was taking over, like, she was in the transition, she was emailing me so I knew what was going on, and she'd do some of the quotes and I'd do some. And I'd literally copy and paste what she'd written. So that, or go over one of her quotes, because I am not a desk person. I'm not a writer. I'm not, and so for me, it was sit down, copy and paste, where then my sister set me up on an accounting package. It's
Mm.
drop boxes, so it's already all written. And I just have to click it all and it adds it all up, and it's fantastic. So I had to learn that. But then as time has gone on, which mum didn't have to put up with, mum sat there with the books, like all the bridal books, and talked to people and went through it all. Um, it's the social media. It's learning how to do, as you know, how to do. It was Facebook first, how to
Mm.
sell yourself on Facebook, how to sell yourself on Instagram. I've recently started TikTok because girls are going there, and I'm getting a bit of a response. Who to use on the wedding platform that's going to get you, like, I was trying one platform and it was costing me more each month than I was actually bringing in, because I don't take massive orders, where a lot of the florists on there take the big
Mm.
thousands of dollar orders, where I don't do that. So it was costing me more than it was worth.
Mm.
Then then I found a platform like Mum would get awards, should come in the top 3 of the Australian Bridal Awards.
Oh,
Just as I went to take over, they said, "Oh, you have to pay $100 to have your votes counted." And I wrote back, and it's like that $100 at that time was like it was $100. No, and I said to him, "Sorry, but we've never had to pay before. I'm not paying." So, but then they scrapped that. It must have been a trial thing, and they scrapped it, and they've gone back to they count the votes again now.
they
But
were charging you to count the votes
they
for
they so
their award system.
the brides would send in their votes, and then they must have, I don't know why, but it was 1 or 2 years, and they said, if you pay $100, we'll count the votes so you'll know where you end up. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing that. So you notice that in my awards, like you see where there's this gap of
Mm.
me not getting, like us not being up there. So like this year we came 4th in Australia. And it's
And you
strange.
pay to get your votes counted?
No,
No,
no.
no.
I do pay now to be on their website, which is fair
That's
because they've got
yeah.
and I get that, and it's not that expensive. I think it's just enough to cover the fees of the back end of what they have to do. I get that.
Yeah,
I
totally.
get that. I get that with my own website. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's right. You know, if you've got any sort of collaboration or you're on someone else's site. So can I go back to you saying, no, we've never paid before, I'm not paying now. Have you always spoken up for yourself?
pretty much, I think I do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can get me in trouble, but I do. I will speak up. I can sit back quietly, and I will sit back and listen. But I will also, if I don't agree, I was talking about another platform that I did try that was just too expensive. And I've gone on to recently, I got invited to go to one of their events, which is basically, I think, to try and draw you in to
Mm.
come on board. And then they called up later and they said, "Oh, we've got this great deal," right? And I just went back to them going, "Well, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong, this is why I will not join. This is what happens." And I do find I do speak up.
Yeah.
But like I said, I will sit back and listen sometimes, and not. I will speak up when I think it's right. Like
Yeah.
if I'm with somebody and I'm
Mm.
thinking, I don't like what you're doing, I don't have to be friends with you, so I don't need to. But for something like that to do with business, or if if I have a friend where I think something's going to hurt them, I will speak up,
Mm.
and say, "Look, not in a nasty way, but look, this
Mm.
might be something just to look at, like look forward." But
Yeah.
yeah, I think I have.
And I
Um,
love that because you're such a giving person. And I know that firsthand. Like you give so much of yourself. And, you know, it sounds like since you're very young, you've worked hard, you've raised 4 children, running 2 businesses, like you're doing a lot. And if you don't stand up for yourself and you don't have your own boundaries, that's really challenging. What I love though, and this is something I come up against all the time, is particularly with women where they want to start their own business and they're like, oh yeah, but I've got to learn all the business stuff first. Like I'm really good at my craft, but I've got to do this. So until I do that, and often it is, you've just got to get up there and get going and learn as you go. And I love that that's what you naturally did, but you did it without even thinking about it, right? This is just the way your cookie crumbled.
yeah.
So in terms of now, and obviously I do know some of this story, where have you really had to find some courage over the recent years? So you're going along, your kids are getting older, you're working. What's gone on? Where's your story taken you and to get us to where you are today?
Well, I guess a couple of years ago, I got diagnosed with scleroderma, and Sjogren's. So
Can you just
they're
explain what
two.
scleroderma and stroke? Oh, you are. Sorry,
Yeah,
apologize.
that's all right. So scleroderma is a disease that, an autoimmune disease, and it's making extra collagen in my body. So it can be, I have Raynaud's, which my hands go completely white and cold, and my toes are starting to do it now. I have esophageal, so it's all little portions. It's not something they can just say, "Oh, you've got this." Which I take medication because food can get stuck in the esophagus. Really bad reflux. So I now go every 12 months. Actually, they're just changing it to 6 months for my lungs. So I have a lung function test, a CT scan done. I have an ultrasound on my heart. I have my kidneys checked. Abnormal came up in my liver, so they did a biopsy of my liver in January and found I had sorry, I can't. It's primary biliosis cirrhosis but it's nothing to do with drinking. Like you always think liver, it's alcohol. I've never been a drinker.
No.
I mean, the odd occasion, but nothing to screw up my liver.
Mm.
So it's scarred now, so I've got to look after my liver as well. The Sjogren's is, it gives you dry eyes, dry mouth. Basically, your skin's drying out. My hair's drying out and getting very brittle. So they're all things to work on. So now what my next step is to work out where my life goes from here.
Because
So
how
at
old are you, Bron? Can I just get you to share?
52.
52, yeah.
So I
Young.
found out, yeah. So I found out, and I'm like, oh, am I going to end up really bad really quickly? Do I get rid of my business because am I going to cope?
Mm.
And it's not necessarily I can keep going with my business till I get sick, but it's for my brides. I take orders 2 years in advance. So with my business, I have to continually be thinking to what am I doing in 2 years? When's all the holidays? My husband, if he wants to take time off, when are you taking off? Because I've got to block out 2026 because I'm taking orders for 2026. So you're always thinking that 2 years ahead of where you're going to be, what you're going to do. So it screwed around with my head a bit. I've got myself into a support group. But then you go to the support group and you kind of see where everyone's progressing, how long they're taking to progress. The last couple of months, we lost 2 out of our support group.
And I'm sure you lost them to death
to
as a result of scleroderma.
Scleroderma.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
One was the the leader of our group. So I've actually taken that on now. I was the one that kept saying, when are we having another meeting? So I've actually taken on the support group. So because I feel if we can just keep coming together, and like yesterday's meeting, there was 3 of us, but another day there might be 6 of us. It just depends on how everyone's feeling on the day, on whether they can make it. But you just talk about how food affects you, different medicines you're on, how you're feeling for the day, and no one can, like, they're the ones that understand what you're going through, because scleroderma is not one specific thing. It's multiple different things that everyone has. So they're chasing their tail on how to look after people. So as a kid growing up, I was helping mum with fundraising. Like, mum's always been community minded. Then she started working for the blind and they needed fundraising. So my sister did it and then did it for 12 months. And then I did a lot for 12 months, which then we were doing like a shopping tour, and we picked different charities that we would donate to. Then we sort of moved around and we were donating to different charities along the way. Then my sister got bowel cancer. We started doing we started doing Relay for Life. So people that don't know Relay for Life, it's 1 day a year for 24 hours. You park
Mm,
yourself up at one of the relays. We did a Kuna, and you would walk. You necessarily wouldn't walk, your
mm,
team. So
mm,
we had a frangipani lay. Actually, sorry, we started out with a football, and then we changed it to a lay. It was this easier to hold. Um, and we just walked and walked. So that Pacific thing had to keep going around the track
mm,
for 24 hours.
I've
Uh,
participated in one of them. It's super
have
fun.
you?
Yeah,
It is
yeah,
super fun, isn't it?
yeah,
I love the night walk, like
yeah,
the 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning.
yeah,
Best time to walk.
yeah. Because it's not normal. It's not your normal
No.
day thing. And I don't know if this is what you get with all the charity and the fundraising work that you do, the way that it makes you feel. Like, I'm not talking
Mm,
about the fact that you're walking, that what you're doing in just walking is helping people, whatever it is that they're dealing with, whatever cause you're supporting, that feeling next to second to nothing.
yes, yes, it
Yeah.
is. And that's when, so we did that right up to COVID. COVID shut down. Literally, we were ready to leave the next day. The van was packed. All the supplies were packed. The cupcakes were cooked because we were baked goods. Everything was ready to go, and Dan Andrews shut us down. And the whole lot, like, we were then like, who wants to buy cupcakes that within however long we can just get rid of them?
Yeah.
Because we
Yeah.
just had piles and piles of food, and we just got all this stuff. So I sort of never went back. Well, we couldn't go back into it. Then when I found out I had scleroderma, I had 12 months of what am I going to do?
Mm.
12 months of working things out. And then last year we did our first dinner again. And I was like, that's it. This is where I I know I found out that it is not government funded. That was
And
my
this is
first
scleroderma. Yep.
scleroderma. So the first trip to the rheumatologist was um it was my husband's one, and she said, look, Troy gets lots of help. He has rheumatoid arthritis. There's thousands of them. The government finds that they're going to make money, like them making the medicine and whatever. There's people to help.
Mm.
Then with scleroderma, she said, sorry, but there's about 6,500 of you in Australia. The government doesn't help. It's all self-funded. So once I found out that's all self-funded, like it's for the research, it's for the nurses, it's because we have our own clinic. I found out at my last dinner, which I didn't realize, it's also breathing machines so that people can use the breathing machines to just go out and do their daily exercise. So they're buying those as well. So last year I did a dinner. We made
It's a charity dinner.
a charity dinner, and it went really well. We had 55 people. We made 5,000, which was the biggest one I had done. We were usually for Relay for Life sitting around the 1,500. Then this year I'm swapping it up. I got a bigger venue, which were amazing, and you were fantastic because you came along and emceed the night for us, and just made it fun, took the pressure off me, especially with it getting up to 100 people. And then we actually made 10,000 this year. But my goal is, yeah, I know, it was so exciting, double the funds. And my goal by May is 30,000. So we're almost up to, in the My Cause, we will be almost up to 13,000. So I've got a little work between now and May, but we'll get there.
Yeah, but can I just acknowledge, one, you've been diagnosed with a disease that is like 6,000 in Australia is not a huge number. It's not common. Until I met you, I'd never even heard of it. So you're dealing with that and the uncertainty and the unknown. You're also still doing your baking. You're also still running your florist business. You're also the mother of 4 children and grandchildren. Like, seriously, and you're doing all this fundraising work. So if you're only at 13,000 with a $30,000 aim by May next year. Far out, Bron. Like, seriously.
You got
What
to reach for the stars, my dear.
I know, but you know, one thing you do, which I really admire about you, you're doing all of this. Your sister's ended up, as you said, diagnosed with bowel cancer, was it?
And she's
Well,
all
no.
good and clear
And
now.
oh, beautiful. I was kind of
Yeah.
hoping that was the story. But you've never complained. You never complain. You just get up and keep going. And even the fact that, you know, your mum's nearly 81 and still doing what she's doing, like, I don't know, it must be in your genes or your blood or something, because you've got to be one of the kindest humans I know. And no
Oh,
surprise, you
thank
keep
you.
giving so much to everyone else. How do you keep your energy up? Because it can't be easy, even if you had a healthy body.
Well, as you see, I did crash at the retreat.
Fair enough, though. You worked the whole time.
Um, you know, I guess it's just having good people around.
Mm,
I really put it down to you have good people. I am very lucky that I have a husband that he goes off and works, but he has never kind of questioned you know, at one stage he said, "Why don't you go get yourself a place to work out of?" And I
mm,
said, "Well, if I get myself a place to work out of, how do I shut that like a store?" And I said, "Well, how do I shut that to run around after the kids?"
yeah.
That's all well and good. I would have loved something like that. Um, but how do you go, "Oh, sorry, I'll be back in 10 minutes because I've got to pick the kids up from school, or I've got to, you know, drop them off at football practice." I've been very lucky along the way that he's let
Mm,
me manage almost, I guess, something I was listening to the other day,
mm,
almost a little old school, letting me stay home and look after the kids and run the business from home. Um, and the kids have been very good at, I mean, kids have been kids, but they also have been pretty good at understanding their upbringing. I guess they knew no different.
mm,
And I do watch them now as they've grown at how hard they're working
mm,
and what my parents have instilled in us.
mm.
Um, and my mum always says, "Oh, Troy's just like your father. You two are just like Dad and I." And I say, and then I watch, and then the kids are doing the same. The kids
Mm,
are hard workers and going out and following. But
mm.
I do think putting the right people around you.
Yeah.
And I do think if somebody is not right for me, I will distance myself from them. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't do it in a, like, I just distance. I don't go, "Oh, you're a horrible person. I
Mm,
don't want to speak to you," or make a
mm.
fuss about it.
No.
I think just distance them. And one of our friends, I've sort of tried to teach her the same. You put good people around you,
Mm,
and good things happen. So,
mm,
um, and making sure, and I do find though I gravitate if I can help someone, and then I realize that that's what I'm gravitating to, the people that need help.
mm.
And I don't know if that's saying I need the help by helping them, or when you look back on that, because then that helps me by helping them, but it also by helping them takes away, you not think about your own problems.
Mm.
If you're helping people or doing the fundraising, there's no time to sit back and go, I do talk about it. Trust me, my kids probably hear me all the time and go, "Oh, mum, you do talk about scleroderma all the time." But it's awareness. I do want people to be aware of it. So if it
Mm,
comes up, I am happy to talk about it. I want people to know it's not
mm,
because of what I'm going through as much as I want people to be aware of what the disease is. So
mm.
I hope
And
that makes sense.
yeah, totally. And because of course we all go on with our lives, right? And there's things that everyone's battling their own thing, whatever it is. And
Yep.
sometimes it's physical, you can see it. Sometimes it's not. It's inner, we don't always share. And it's not about woe, woe, poor me. It's not about being a victim. because you're far from that. You're someone who goes, I've got this. As a result of it, given you like helping, like you've channeled your fundraising now and all of those efforts and energy into raising money for this cause, whereas in the past it was for other causes. Like you just get on and do it, and you don't just sit back and go, whoa, whoa, poor me, which is actually one of your beautiful qualities. But in doing that, you've got to have other people around you where you allow them to support you, because you cannot do this all by yourself.
Yes, yes. And I do. I've had a friend who, as you know, we had stacks of Tupperware donated for my cause, and she's been a big supporter. And then she said to me, Brom, why don't you become a Tupperware consultant? Then you can raise with your group. And I never thought I'd sell Tupperware.
I don't think
It
any
was
of us
never
thought
on my
Tupperware would
radar.
still be around.
Yeah, it's still around, and we've heard all it's going under. No, America's going under, not Australia.
The
And
American Tupperware is going under. Yeah. Okay.
American Tupperware, not here.
Not
But
Australian Tupperware.
yeah, and so I've started selling that. So, which has brought on another friend who's going through her own little, I shouldn't say little, her problems.
Mm.
Used to be a Tupperware consultant, and she's like, no, I'm taking a leaf out of your book. I'm going to help with fundraising, so I'm going to help you reach your goal. So she's come on board, and she's explaining it because I know nothing about it. So she's my once a week gets a product, does a product thing. So we've come together as a community, but all the proceeds, like not proceeds, all the commission that I receive, I'm actually donating back.
Of course
So
you.
so it's not me making money off it. I'm doing it, getting the gifty things to hand out to try and get more people to buy,
Mm.
and then we donate the funds back. And I do put it quite out there, like I've got a page, and I put this week we actually did $53. I donated, I put week sets, Tupperware. I screenshot that so people see, yes, she's actually donating it,
Mm.
because I would hate for them to think, oh no, she's just pocketing it. But no, I'm actually putting it fully out there, the My Cause donation, and they see that, yes, it is going there. But my God,
Wow.
who would have thought I'd sell Tupperware?
Um, yeah, I agree. But can I say, having seen some of the products that were at the charity event, the recent Scleroderma charity night, oh my goodness, there's all these hot pink stuff. It's really cool and funky. It's kind of not what the old Tupperware was. But what again, you're like the Mother Teresa of 2020, right? Seriously, that you've already got these other businesses. You're still making cakes, still doing all your floristry work. You obviously came and cooked at my retreat. I know you do a lot of work with Melina in her business and the cooking. You're also selling the Tupperware, raising money with all the commission going to help and support Scleroderma cause for kids, grandkids, fruitcake, Bron. Like seriously, you're one of those angels on this planet that helps so many people. So on that note, and again, maybe a really silly question to ask you given what you've just shared, but what's the next thing you've got to reach in and find some courage for?
I guess it will be the biggest thing, I guess, will be when I finish up with the business, because I know eventually that I probably won't be able to do it.
Yep.
And it will be what happens with that. That's probably the biggest thing that I have down the track.
Yeah.
Considering Mum and I have been doing it since 1988. And my girls, like we kind of always joke that the girls would get it, but their pathways is not there.
Mm.
And they have their own choices. And my daughter, one is in disability, and the other works reception work. And I don't think I don't want to say I don't think the passion, like I was off working long hours at a bakery and coming home and wanting to do the flowers, and
Yeah.
and you know that it's in you, and it's in them. They know how to do it. because they've been doing it since they were born. They'd sit up and make little posies and play with flowers. But the amount of work that goes into a wedding when they've got their career path they've got. So that would be the hardest thing after. I mean, mum said to me, if the business needs to go, it's up to you. But that would be the biggest decision along the way that I'll have to make and find the courage to
Yeah.
decide
And
where to go.
oh, absolutely. And I guess the challenge for you too, Bron, is that you don't know when that time will come when that
No.
decision needs to be made. And, your daughters, your sons, but, family members might have been a succession plan, but they're not. That's not their path.
Yes.
So that's no longer an option. So yeah, it might be the winding down of the business or the selling it or whatever that looks like. But I can imagine that comes with a whole range of its own emotion as well, given it was started by your mum and you and your sister got involved. And yeah, I can certainly feel that the weight of that decision and what's to come and the courage that it will take to make
Yeah.
the call when you need to.
Well, I've
But you
been
know
doing
what?
it since I was 15.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I can imagine. But I love that, you've made everything else work so far and not through lack of challenge and not through lack of having to do the hard yards or work things out, but you've done it. So I reckon whatever you get thrown, you'll be able to work out because you're just that kind of gorgeous and you give so much to so many others that there will be so many people supporting you no matter what you just decide to do or where you go. So
Mm.
you are just one phenomenal woman,
Oh,
Bronwyn
thank you. And
Robinson.
you made,
And
if I could cry, you make me cry. I can't cry. I got no tears.
oh, you really can't cry.
No, I really can't cry.
So that and
I said to the makeup artist at my daughter's wedding when she was putting it on, I said, I will be your best mother. I said, because I can't cry my makeup off.
oh my God. Yes, there certainly can be some benefits of that. Can
Yeah,
I just ask, do you still experience the emotion of it though?
it's a different emotion. It's really weird because you kind of get the build up, but you can't,
No outlet.
you actually don't realize when you cry what the tears is such a release.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so totally different. But yeah, there's no tears.
Oh,
No,
wow.
no, yeah.
Oh,
So
I
so
can
I
imagine that.
actually had a girlfriend send me a message the day of our dinner, and she sent me
The
this
charity
message
dinner.
on my the charity dinner,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm gonna cry. So I got my eye drops out because my eyes got so dry because they were, and I'm like, I'm crying now as I'm
You
putting
you want
drops
that
in.
that feeling, but it doesn't come out, it doesn't release
Doesn't
like others. So
Yeah, yeah,
there you go. So right now, if you could cry, you would, except you can't, which is good.
exactly.
Oh,
So
man. Oh, wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. So a good old sad movie on TV doesn't, bring on the tears, nothing does.
no, you
Oh,
feel
but
it, but you can't release it.
oh, there you go. There you go. One of the downsides, I guess, but, you know,
Yeah, it
um,
is because I've been told now, like, that I have to drop my eyes 3 times a day, so morning,
yeah.
afternoon, and night, because they said it's, once the ulcers start getting on your eyes, it's harder to fix them because they've gotten so dry that it's harder to fix than if I'm dropping them all the time.
Ah. Well, at least you also don't get all, what do you call it, soggy eyes and that from hay
Yeah,
fever. So, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
The pros and the cons, right? Well,
Exactly.
on your journey and, what I've learned about scleroderma to date through knowing you and the beautiful, fundraising and the charity work that you do. Again, we'll put all the details in the show notes. If anyone wants to donate, wants to know a bit more about it or how they can help, I'm sure you can point them in the right direction. If anyone needs any flowers made for weddings or other
That's
events they
it.
need, this is absolutely your woman. You made all the beautiful floral arrangements for my live show when I did the Courageous Me live show. Absolutely stunning, spectacular. You do all the flowers as well as all the cooking and table settings for my retreats. So your work is just second to none. It all,
Thank
and
you.
no surprise, it all comes from your beautiful, glorious heart. because everything you do comes from just such a beautiful place. So
Thank you.
thank you for sharing your story, which of course you had a story, and for being courageous enough to come on board and share, because hopefully that will inspire someone else, or at least sell some Tupperware and get some more money to raise a cause for scleroderma. Bronwyn
Yep.
Robinson, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
podcast.
you. Thank you, my dear.